certificate, social security number, or green card, and Madeline wasn't even sure of Yenil's age, but it had been less trouble than she had expected. The principal had made comments, but the woman at the desk had told Madeline it was no problem, that this happened from time to time. Shula thought Yenil was about 7, and that seemed right to Madeline. So this week she would enter 2nd grade. It would be difficult. She had just begun learning to read. She looked different than the other kids. She had long black hair, brown skin that seemed to have an almost chalky gray undertone, and a mess of silver scars that covered her arms and hands, the scars that matched Madeline's own. But it had been almost 6 months, and the little girl so often burst with joy and happiness that Madeline could almost forget Yenil had lost her parents, murdered by the Elenol in the wasted lands. Then, 3 days ago, something strange had happened in the garden. Madeline had been in her chair by the window, taking in the manicured but lonely expanse of it, the pond, the fountain, the winding white path, the maple where she had met the garden lady, the bench her mother had placed near there, the little fairy villages that Yenil built along the shore of the pond, the hedge that enclosed it all. Then she'd seen it. Beside the path stood a tall stalk of flowers, purple bells crowded onto a single strand of green. It stood at least 4 feet tall and was blooming out of season. Not only that, but it was a plant her mother had never seen in the garden and hadn't planted. Foxglove, her mother said, a plant that only flowers in its 2nd year. It should not have been there, should not bloom in the fall. Sophia went out into the garden and cut it, and put it in the vase on the kitchen counter. "A volunteer," she said with a note of disbelief in her voice. Madeline's mother frowned, first at the flower and then at Sophia. "One of the neighbors must have planted some, or a bird dropped the seed in our yard. It feels wrong, having this flower in this season." The next morning, Madeline made her way to the back window, stopping to breathe when needed, taking small and careful steps. 6 more stalks of foxglove stood, heavy with purple bells, near the maple tree. Sophia, astonished, brought them in and put them in the same vase. Then, last night, Madeline had a dream. She stood in the kitchen, near the vase of foxgloves, and heard a ringing, clear and clean, like a tiny silver bell struck with a tiny silver hammer. One of the flowers shook, and Madeline held her hand beneath the opening of the bell. How did she know to do this? And a fairy fell out of the plant, landing in the palm of her hand. The fairy was tiny and weak, curled in upon itself. It had clothes made from bits of leaves and acorns. It wore a small twist of wood on its forehead, a tiny crown. It was breathing, but did not turn to look at her. Its mouth moved, but no sound came out. Then more ringing. A 2nd bell, a 3rd, then all the bells, all at once, 100 flowers ringing, and she knew each was a fairy arriving, entering her house through the flowers. All of them trying to say something, all of them failing, each of them wearing a crown. A green glow suffused the kitchen, and a sharp pain came from Madeline's arm. The seed burned there, small and bright as a star. She put her hand over it, but the light shone through her fingers. She woke, gasping for air in the darkness of her bedroom, and stumbled to the kitchen. She reached for the vase, but in her haste she knocked it to the floor, where the crystal shattered with a sound not unlike 1,000 bells. She felt the cold wash of asphyxia moving through her, knew she would faint if she was not careful, and slid to the floor among the shattered glass and broken flower stems. She could not avoid the pressing certainty that the flowers were a communication from the Sunlit Lands, that they were reaching out again. She wanted to be left in peace, left out of their wars and conflicts and injustices. She had nothing left to give. Her strength was gone, her breath, her hope, and she resented the Sunlit Lands intruding again, asking for her help. She was the one who needed help. A small part of her